Very few Linux distros have the privilege of being endorsed by the Free Software Foundation. Currently, only about 12 GNU/Linux distros have that honor. One of those distros is Trisquel. Today, I'm going to take a look at the very recently released Trisquel Gnu/Linux 8.0. So today I'm going to take a look at Trisquel 8.0. I'm going to go ahead and download the ISO and install this inside a virtual machine. First, let's discuss what Trisquel actually is. From the DistroWatch page here, the release announcement, Trisquel Gnu/Linux is an Ubuntu-based desktop distribution which features free and open source software exclusively, which is why it can be endorsed by the Free Software Foundation. It only uses free software. There is no closed source proprietary software of any kind included on this distro. That includes the kernel, all the apps, all the libraries, drivers, everything, all open source. So let's see. In the release announcement, the biggest internal change to the default edition is the switch from GNOME to Mate. So I guess they used to use the GNOME desktop environment, and they've recently switched to Mate, which I think is probably a wise choice for everybody. I think everybody really should just get away from the GNOME desktop environment. That's a personal opinion, guys. Don't blast me in the comments. It was kind of a joke. Anyway. The Trisquel website can be found at trisquel.info. What is Trisquel? Trisquel Gnu/Linux is a fully free operating system for home users, small enterprises, and education centers. And, of course, it's actually a very attractive website, too, for kind of a not that well-known Linux distribution. Again, there's a small niche of Linux users, or GNU/Linux users, that would be interested in using a FSF, Free Software Foundation, endorsed distro like Trisquel. For one thing, anybody that buys like an NVIDIA or an AMD graphics card, you probably bought that thing for performance. And to get performance out of that, you have to use the closed source proprietary NVIDIA drivers or AMD drivers. You just do. The open source drivers, they kind of work, but depending on what you're doing, especially if you're doing like very intensive stuff like gaming, video rendering, that sort of thing, the open source drivers just don't cut it. You really have to use the proprietary drivers. That's one of the big hurdles to get over is drivers, as far as using some of these Free Software Foundation endorsed Linux distros like Trisquel. Let's see. Matter of fact, let's go to the GNU.org website and show you the current list of FSF endorsed distros. They include distros that I've never heard of. If I've never heard of, probably 99.9% of you have never heard of some of these. Blag, never heard of that one. Dragora, I have heard of that. Dynabolic, never heard of that. GNUsense used to be pretty popular. I don't think it's had a release in a while, though. Gwix SD, I've never heard of. Musix, never heard of that one. Parabola, I do know Parabola. It's based on Arch. PureOS, of course, has been in the news a lot lately. Trisquel, which has been a long time since the last Trisquel release, so that's kind of why I'm doing this video. This is kind of big news that the Trisquel 8.0 release is out. And then we also have Ubuntu, I guess is how you pronounce this distro, Ubuntu-S. So there are your FSF endorsed distros. Now, some of you may be saying, well, why isn't my distro of choice sponsored by the Free Software Foundation? Why isn't Ubuntu or Debian or Fedora or Arch, insert whatever distro you want, endorsed by the Free Software Foundation? Well, they have a page for that too. And they discuss why all of the popular big Linux distros do not make the cut in the Free Software Foundation's eyes, the GNU Project's eyes, Richard Stallman's eyes. They explain Arch. Let's see, the problems with Arch are two problems. There's no clear policy about what software can be included, and non-free blobs are shipped with their kernel. That's going to be the problem with most of the distros in this list is the kernel. The kernel has non-free blobs in it for the most part. Very few Linux distros are shipping an entirely free kernel. And that's going to be the problem with things like Debian. Also, they have a problem that Debian has a repository of non-free software. It's not enabled by default, but Debian actually does have a repository hosted on Debian servers that contains non-free software. Fedora is going to have those issues too. Ubuntu, being based on Debian, is going to have those issues too. Ubuntu also may have some licensing problems depending on Ubuntu patents and stuff. I guess the BSD systems all have some problems. So does Haiku and React OS. So very few distros make the cut. Trisquel is one of them. So the ISO was pretty large. I want to say the ISO was around 2.5 gigs in size. Let me go ahead and fire up a VM and we'll get this thing installed. So today I'm going to be installing this inside VirtualBox. So when you first boot up the ISO, it looks like your standard is it the Debian installer almost, even though it's this thing is based on Ubuntu. But of course Ubuntu is also based on Debian. This looks very much like the Debian boot menu here. Try Trisquel without installing. Install Trisquel, which launches the installer. Install Trisquel in text mode, which is a text-based installer. Check disk. Test mem. Boot from first hard disk. Let's just go ahead and run the installer. This may take a second to load. These live environments often do. I'm not sure actually if this is actually going to boot us into a live environment. If it's using like a standard Debian installer, it should just load an installer. Graphical installer. No, it's going to take us to a live environment. Nice wallpaper, even for a live environment. I don't know if you guys picked that up. Okay. Let me turn up the desktop audio. I didn't expect there to be any audio, but there is a screen reader playing on the desktop. So I guess it's for accessibility for anybody with a disability. So this looks like the standard Ubiquity installer, actually the standard Ubuntu installer, so this is not the Debian installer. English has been chosen as our language. That's correct. I'm just going to click continue. Download updates while installing Trisquel. This saves time after the installation. It probably does save time, but for purposes of this video to save time, I'm not going to bother updating Trisquel. This computer currently has no detected operating system. What would you like to do? By default, the first option is chosen for us. Erase the entire disk and install Trisquel. If we needed to do some manual partitioning, we could go down here and choose something else and create our own partitions. I'm just going to let Trisquel do some automatic partitioning. Also by default, they have ticked on encrypt the new Trisquel installation for security. I'm going to tick that off. I don't need to do that, not in a VM anyway. Use LVM with the new Trisquel installation. That's logical volume management. It allows you to take snapshots. I'm going to take that off. I won't need that in this VM. I'm going to click install now. Alright, and let's see, the partitioning. The scheme looks like it's going to create an extended 4 file system. It's also going to create a swap, and it's also going to create an XFS partition. That is interesting. Anyway, I'm going to click continue. Alright, it has correctly chosen the central time zone in the US for me. Keyboard layout, it is correctly chosen English US. I can test it out though in the test field here. If I could type. Anyway, click continue. Alright, we need to create our username and password. I'm going to call my user DT. Create a very long and complicated password for this DT user. And log in automatically can be ticked on, or require my password to log in can be ticked on. I like requiring the password to log in for privacy reasons. You certainly want to require a password if you're using a computer that has multiple users. Everybody should have their own password. Alright, and the installer is running. This is probably going to take somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes. So I'm going to pause the video. Okay, the installation has completed. That was very quick. Once we got to the actual installation, where the slideshow runs, maybe 5 minutes. But, that's pretty standard with Ubuntu. Ubuntu installs are very quick. So you need to click Restart Now. If you got the live USB stick, if you guys are installing this on a physical machine, this is where you take the live USB stick out and then reboot the machine. That's what I'm going to do right now. Alright, and then I rebooted the machine, and Trisquel booted up very, very fast. That may have been like a 5-second boot. That was a very fast boot up time. Why is the keyboard not working here, though? Okay. It's kind of odd here. Is my mouse working in the VM? Yeah.
Password for DT password text.
Okay. Why? It's very strange. Light DM is not working with me here, at least not the password field. Never had that happen before in a VM. Let me kill this VM. Just going to run an X kill here. I'm actually going to launch this VM again. Should be good. You guys get to see how fast this thing boots up. Because I didn't catch the whole thing before when I started the video. But this is an extremely fast boot time. And that's it. It's booted.
Screen reader on start.
And now my keyboard is working. I'm not sure why the keyboard didn't work in LightDM the first time. Probably not a Trisquel problem. Probably a problem with VirtualBox, or just the fact that I'm in a tiling window manager. Maybe something else had trapped my keyboard. Not a big deal. One thing I will notice is in Ubuntu and Ubuntu-based distributions, usually the VirtualBox guest editions work out of the box. No problems. It's not going to work in Trisquel. There's no VirtualBox guest editions here. So there's no need to review that, full screen, because it's going to take up a little too much of the screen. So we'll just review it. In this resolution here, it looks like it's maybe 1280 by 720. Anyway, gorgeous Mate desktop. Just beautiful. Love the wallpaper. Love the kind of translucent panel here at the bottom. I mean, this is really, really gorgeous. I wasn't expecting this. I've never actually taken a look at Trisquel before because I've never honestly been interested in free software foundation distros. They're not something I would ever consider running on my machines for the fact, you kind of need the proprietary drivers to have a proper desktop experience. I love the principle. I would use nothing but free and open source software exclusively if it was feasible, but for some things, it just isn't. Anyway, I'm going to go through the Mate menu here. I wonder how I turn that reader off.
Log out DT ... Lock screen.
You guys hear that?
Accessories menu. Games menu.
You know what? I don't even have to speak. I can just let it tell you what's in the menu. But you know what? I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to disable that reader. Okay, guys. I had to figure out exactly what program that screen reader was. It's the Orca screen reader. It's probably the most popular screen reader application for Linux. So I just opened up a terminal, kill all Orca, and the screen reader went away. Thankfully. Alright, now back to the review. Alright, under the internet category, we have a browser. I am not familiar with a browser at all. But again, we may have some interesting choices for software here, because this being a free software foundation endorsed distro, they may go in some different directions than a lot of your standard GNU/Linux distros. A browser, Trisquel Gnu/Linux. A browser for Trisquel Gnu. Okay, that doesn't tell me anything, but maybe this is a Trisquel project here, because it actually says a browser for Trisquel. So IceDove is our mail client. IceDove is a, is it Thunderbird? It's a rebranded Thunderbird, I think. If it'll launch for me. No, I'm not sure. Cool. Let's see. It could be Thunderbird. Could be wrong about that. Not sure about IceDove. Anyway, again, we're going to have some strange programs here. Pigeon for an instant messaging client. Libre feed reader. I've seen this before. It's a very nice RSS news feed reader. Pretty cool program. All right. Remote desktop viewer, of course. That's going to be Remina, I believe. Let's see. Now, this is Vinegary. Vinegary is a remote desktop viewer for the GNOME desktop. Okay. And we have the transmission BitTorrent client, which is the standard BitTorrent client in GNOME. Even though we're using the Mate desktop, there's going to be some GNOME apps. Mate is a fork of the old GNOME 2 project. Under Office, we have the LibreOffice suite. We have Writer, Calc, Impress, Base, Draw, and Math. I will mention one thing about this menu system. I've noticed the main categories here, and also when you get into the categories here, they're not alphabetized. It's kind of strange. Well, this menu is alphabetized, but that might have been an accident. This one's definitely not. The main menu's definitely not. Anyway, it's a minor gripe. You know, let's check out LibreOffice Impress. Let's just open one of these LibreOffice programs to see what version of LibreOffice Trisquel 8.0 is using. And they are using version 5.1.6. Okay, graphics. We have the Eye of Mate image viewer. We have GIMP. And GIMP 2.8 it looks like. Which I believe is the latest stable version of GIMP, although they do have some release candidates out, and they're getting ready to release a new GIMP any day now. Yeah, GIMP 2.8.16. Also under graphics, we have the Mate color selection tool and Simple Scan, which is a scanning utility. Okay. The program took a second to close. It's kind of slow closing that program. Brasero is a disk burning utility. It's the disk burning utility in GNOME. Cheese is a webcam app. Sound, of course, is your volume control here. And we also have VLC for our media player. VLC is a fantastic media player. Now, VLC in itself is free and open source software, but a lot of distros, when they package VLC, when you install VLC by default, they install a bunch of proprietary codecs with it, multimedia codecs, so VLC can properly play those, file formats. In Trisquel, that's not going to be the case. You're going to open up proprietary multimedia formats that just will not play in VLC. All right, games. We have Owlrat, Solitaire. We have Chess, Mahjong, Mines, and Sudoku. Under Accessories, we have our document viewer. We have Kaja, which is the file manager here in the Mate desktop. Kaja 1.12.7. I will say this VM does feel kind of sluggish. I don't know if you guys are picking it up on the recording, but it does feel a little sluggish moving around here. That was the character map. Nothing interesting there. I just wanted to open it just to see if programs were opening correctly. Mate's calendar, their dictionary, the Mate disk usage analyzer. Let's check that out. All right. We created a 15 gig hard drive on this virtual machine, and we are using roughly 5 gigs of disk space, so about a third of it. That's not too bad. The ISO again was about 2.5 gigs in size. On board is a on-screen keyboard for GNOME. We have password and keys. Pluma is the text editor in the Mate desktop environment. Yeah, the mouse is kind of acting squirrely here in the VM. I don't know if that's something to do with Trisquel necessarily or not. Screen magnifier. We have screen reader. That is that Orca screen reader, the on-screen reader that was playing when we first launched. We have our screenshot utility. We have a other category here that includes the dconfig editor, the GDebi package installer. GDebi is a graphical package installer that helps you install .deb files, .deb files, Debian files. Of course, you can always install those files using dpkg in the command line, but GDebi is a nice graphical way of installing deb files. We have our log file viewer, the Mate system monitor. Let's take a look at this. Okay, well, I see why this VM is acting very sluggish. Look at the CPU usage. It is off the charts. 100% for CPU 2, 56% for CPU 1. So I gave this machine 2 cores of my 6-core CPU, and it is using a lot of CPU, way too much. Completely unacceptable. Memory is fine. RAM is 591 megs of the 4 gigs I gave it. That's fine, but something is using a lot of CPU. What process is taking all that CPU? The Compton compositor. Okay. Well, it's only using 4% of the CPU. That is the... Something is acting crazy here. It may be Compton that's causing the problem. Just to test it out, though, I'm going to Control-Alt-T to pull up a terminal and kill all Compton. Of course, I could have killed it in the system monitor. I'm not that familiar with Mate's system monitor, but you guys know me. I tend to do everything in the terminal. Now, when I look at resources, look at resource usage. It's 5% on CPU 1, 2% on CPU 2. So whatever was going on with the compositing, and it could be VM related. The Compton compositor, if you installed this on physical hardware, might function correctly, but in this VM, that was really bad. So I'm glad I killed that. Now I can actually move around. The mouse is moving around freely. Let's see, if I open the file manager again, everything just moves, functions freely. And I grab a window and move it. Yeah, does it close right away? Yeah, it's definitely functioning better now. Under System, we have Preferences, and this is your usual stuff. Preferences for display, keyboard, mouse, power management, network connections, look and feel, such as appearance, menu, Mate Tweak, the Mate Tweak tool. Let's take a look at that. Is this show desktop icons? These are these desktop icons. I don't like icons on my desktop. I'd tick that off. But if you had it ticked on, you would have options to show computer, home, trash, network, and mounted volumes. Tick that off. Yeah, that's a much better desktop, in my opinion. Also under System, we had Administration, Add, Remove Applications. Let's see what kind of graphical software center we have here. The list of available applications is out of date, so it needs to sync the repos here. Not sure how long this will take. This may take a second. While that's running, though, I can take a look at what else is in the menu here. Let's see. Network printer, software updater. That's going to be your standard software updater tool, and Ubuntu. Software and updates. That's the standard software and updates tool in Ubuntu, where you can add extra repositories, run your updates. In this tool, you usually have options for installing proprietary drivers. I don't see that option here in Trisquel, though, so no proprietary drivers here. Anyway, so the graphical software center here looks pretty standard. You pick a category. I'm going to pick Internet. Under Internet, it gives me a list of all available Internet packages in the repo for install. And I could pick one here. I could pick, FileZilla. If I wanted a FTP client, tick that on here. And let's see, hit Apply Changes. It's going to install FileZilla. Hit Apply. You always have to give a root password to install software. Install or remove software or update your system. Any system changes will always require a root password. Alright, and that should have installed FileZilla for me. Well, it's still going, but shouldn't take too long. All right, and that was it. Your standard GUI package manager. Simple, easy to use, intuitive. I like that. We also have the Synaptic package manager installed. I quite like the Synaptic package manager. It's not really graphical, at least in terms of giving you screenshots and icons and stuff, but it is a great way to search for packages. You just start searching for something, for example, Firefox. I'm not sure if Firefox is actually in the repos here in Trisquel. Firefox, of course, does not come up. They will be using a rebranded Firefox of some kind. What was the rebranded Firefox forever in Debian? Was it Iceweasel? No, Iceweasel was something else. No, I think it was Iceweasel. No. But anyway, I wonder if Firefox ESR is here. No, that's not coming up either, but you get the idea how the search would work in Synaptic. You guys have seen me play with the Synaptic package manager before. We have our control center here, your standard control center. And the one last thing here in the menu system I'll take a look at, there is a link for About Mate. What version of Mate? Mate Desktop Environment 1.12.1. Alright, I'm going to right click on the desktop. Right click on the desktop does not do anything for me. Why not? I know Mate usually lets you right click on the desktop. That's kind of strange. Well, since it won't right click on the desktop like normal where I can change the wallpapers, which is what I was going to take a look at, looks like I have to go to the menu, System, Preferences, Look and Feel, Appearance. This should get me to where I wanted to go. Alright, this is our themes. Let me open up a file manager so we can actually see how this looks when I make these changes. So this is the default theme, which is a very, very nice looking theme. I actually like that. But we have your standard ambient theme, your standard Ubuntu ambient theme. Nice theme as well. Black Mate. It's my favorite as far as black themes for the Mate desktop environment. Really nice. Blue Menta is not bad as well. Also have some green themes, some more blue themes. And of course the default Trisquel theme again. I'm going to leave the default theme on. You know what? I shouldn't have closed the appearance program, though. I wanted to take a look at icons. Did they have any extra icons installed? Well, there's no icons in this program. It must be a different program to change the icons. We can look at backgrounds, though. Wallpapers. It's the standard Mate wallpaper pack, so nothing extra. Just the standard Mate wallpaper pack that's found in the Debian repos and the Ubuntu repos. So, nice wallpapers. Really good looking wallpapers. Pretty cool stuff. Alright, let's see what else we can play with. Where was the icons? They're not in appearance. Let's open up the Mate tweak. Interface, Windows. No, they're not here. I'm not exactly sure where to play with the icons. Okay, so I've been playing around with this for a few minutes trying to figure out how to change the icon set. And it's not in the Mate tweak tool. I feel like an idiot sometimes doing these reviews, especially, I've played around in Mate on the channel so many times. I've never not been able to figure out how to change the icon set. So I'm positive it was in this program. Theme, background, fonts, interface. If I choose a theme, say the Black Mate theme. Okay, we have this customize button here. Okay, and then it opens up a new window where we can change the window controls, the window borders, the icon set. The icon sets. We have the option of the Adwaita icon set, the standard GNOME icon set. That thing is hideous. High contrast. The Ubuntu Humanity icon set, the Mate icon set, the Menta icon set, the default Trisquel icon set, and Ubuntu Mobile. I'm going to just go back to the default Trisquel icon set. I'm going to also do the Trisquel theme here, the window themes. Okay, so what are my final thoughts here on Trisquel GNU /Linux 8.0? It's a fine distro for what it is. It serves a purpose. Unlike a lot of distros I review that sometimes I don't think serve a real purpose, don't feel a niche. Distros like Trisquel actually serve a purpose and they fill a role. And that role is, it is an entirely free operating system. There is no proprietary, non-free software of any kind in Trisquel Gnu /Linux. There are no blobs in the kernel. There are no proprietary drivers of any kind. Even if you wanted to go out and get those proprietary drivers, it didn't look like they provided any easy tools for you to use to get those proprietary drivers. But you could still get them if you really wanted to. But this is not the kind of distro you run non-free software on. You run something like Trisquel because it's basically out of principle. You want to be supporting the free software movement. If you're not all in on that Richard Stallman free software foundation train, this is not the distro for you. You have no business running something like Trisquel. You're not going to be happy in it. You're not going to like spending a ton of money on that high-end NVIDIA graphics card and then having to run the Nouveau drivers. You're not going to be happy with VLC as your multimedia player. Fantastic. Best multimedia player we have in Linux. But there's no proprietary codecs installed at all. So most of the video and audio formats that you want to play in VLC are not going to work. And getting those proprietary multimedia codecs installed on Trisquel, probably not going to be that easy. You're going to have to work at it a little bit. If you like an Ubuntu-based distro and the Mate desktop and are not so principled and want to stick with 100% free software, then obviously Ubuntu Mate is really where you need to be at. Trisquel is really for the free software crowd. Those that really want to stand on principle, and I applaud you people that are like that. I applaud Richard Stallman. We all owe people like Richard Stallman a huge debt of gratitude for promoting free software the way he does. He does so much for us, and sometimes we make fun of him. He's an interesting character, but Richard, love you. All right, before I go, let me give a special thanks to all my patrons. I want to give a shout out to Ron, Brian, Carl, Greg, Carlos, Rob, Mark, Christian, Benjamin, Steven, AK, Marcus, Kevin, Bob, John, Jake, Interceptor, Matt Miller, Mr. Neely Pops, and the Dark One. You guys rock. You guys help make this show possible. Peace, guys.